I'm Dan McKnight. I work for Helis Oil and Gas Company out of the New Orleans office, and the production manager for Helis, but I'm also the SIMS general manager for Helis as well. Helis is excited and proud to have been nominated and selected as a finalist for the 2020 Safety Leadership Award. The title of my presentation is Partnering with the U.S. Coast Guard for Offshore Safety and Environmental Protection. Helis believes that we have, in our partnering with the Coast Guard, we have done a service to the entire oil and gas industry in the OCS by helping them to be better prepared to address our various emergencies offshore, both for human life and environmental protection. Helis is a 79-year-old exploration and production company. We're based in New Orleans. We have 35 employees, but we have quite a number of contractors that we hire to perform our field operations. We've been an OCS operator since 1995. We've drilled 72 wells in the OCS, completed and produced 40 of those wells. We have 4 remaining wells in 4 separate blocks in the OCS at this time. It is important to note that Helis endeavors to apply the safety environmental management system to our operations in state waters, especially in our Black Bay field, which on a week-to-week basis houses at least 22 personnel who operate over 80 wells producing in Black Bay of Plaquemines Parish. They do a very good job of using SIMS as the safety system for our company and have grown in it over the past decade and performed very well. And it has become part of their culture for sure. Next slide, please. So partnering with the Coast Guard. The main partnership that we experience most often is with the Coast Guard Air Station in New Orleans. Their mission, as stated by them, is the Coast Guard Air Station New Orleans supports a wide range of Coast Guard operations to include search and rescue, law enforcement, port security, and marine environmental protection. Air Station New Orleans area responsibility ranges from Apalachicola, Florida to the Louisiana-Texas border, north to Memphis, Tennessee, and into the Gulf of Mexico. The partnership that Helis and the Coast Guard have had over the past years is in the area of training for search and rescue and in the marine environmental protection aspect. Next slide, please. I'd like to discuss 3 areas of the partnership we have with the Coast Guard. It has grown organically to this state over the years. We assist the Coast Guard in their air operations, in process facility tours and training, oil transfer facility operations, and in the area of enhanced fleet safety as part of our SIMS program and contractor management aspects of our SIMS. We vet our vessels and our mariners and have had communicated many times with the Coast Guard about our findings there. And then finally, I'll discuss a couple of life-saving actions that Helis personnel participated in the Gulf of Mexico. Next slide, please. So the first to discuss is the aid in training for air operations. Helicopter training on offshore platforms is very important. They don't get many opportunities for the Coast Guard pilots don't get opportunities to practice offshore landings. And so Helis, being only 35 miles from the Coast Guard Air Station, provides a close but over water landing area for Coast Guard pilots to train landings. So what we allow and what the Coast Guard is happy to do is to allow them to come. They come about every 2 months, and they land frequently. There's up to 2 helicopters, one after the other. They do touch and goes on our platform on our helideck in the Black Bay field of Plaquemines Parish. And they do those both at day and at night. So it's a kind of an exciting time to be on the platform when that's going on. But we believe that that helps with training of the pilots who are responsible for doing search and rescue operations in the OCS as well as in the bay fields as well. Next slide, please. In the area of training, Helis annually at least offers and invites the U.S. Coast Guard from Marine Safety Unit HOMA, excuse me. We've invited others as well, excuse me, to come to our offshore platform. I'm going to take a drink of water if you don't mind. To allow personnel, these are the personnel who are involved in spill management, spill response, and we give them opportunity to board our vessels on shore, take a boat ride out to our facilities, board the facility. They take, of course, orientation. They tour the facility. We have offshore personnel who are very knowledgeable about every aspect of oil and gas processing facility and water as well. And explain to them what the various equipment looks like, and pipe and vessels and flanges, and we believe that that will help them in their spill response. I'm not sure how many of you guys are on your spill management teams, but I am on Helis's. And one of the difficulties we find when we have an incident, a spill or other incident, when we call in to the first person on the help desk to receive a spill report, many times is not trained and not aware of the various oil field equipment and processes and vessels and such, so that when you describe what has occurred, you spend a little too much time trying to explain what it is that you're talking about when it comes to the equipment and the layout of equipment and the way that we operate in the over the water. So we believe that this helps in their ability to take down reports quickly, describe it properly, and get things moving more quickly to respond to any environmental incident or otherwise. The purpose is for the Marine Safety Unit to oil spill response personnel to become familiar with the equipment. And based on this positive feedback we have received, we intend to increase the frequency. So far, it's been a couple of times a year. This year was a bust. Although we may still be able to do it before the end of the year, we intend to set up another session. They come out and visit the platform, and then they go into our training room of our platform where we house 22 people. And an engineer will give a explanation of the oil and gas industry in general, from geology to production and process and pipeline. And we've had a lot of positive feedback. So we're planning more of these visits and training sessions. We'd like to thank Chief Warrant Officer Dana Fleming from the Marine Safety Unit HOMA, who has done a bang-up job of coordinating these training sessions and visits. Next slide, please. The next method that we have provided aid and training to various Coast Guard personnel is on our oil transfer facility that was located in our Black Bay field from 2016 to 2017, when our oil sales pipeline broke down, and the pipeline company required a year to make repairs and replacements of segments of the line before we could come back online through pipeline. So Helis set up the proper equipment and procedures and Coast Guard approved procedures to have an oil barge for storage at our Black Bay facility. And we use that for a year in order to continue to produce the field and to sell our oil. Of course, some of you may be aware of the training that's required. Tankerman training was required of our personnel who were operating that barge. And after we had it running smoothly, we invited Coast Guard personnel who were in training for their regulatory responsibility of monitoring and touring and inspecting these kind of facilities to come to our site and to tour it and to discuss our operations and to review our manual and procedures. And so that was another opportunity for a training of Coast Guard personnel for a time. The barge has now been retired and we're back to selling oil by pipeline. Next slide, please. Now in the area of fleet safety, this fits in with our SIMS contractor management procedures, where we vet our vessels, our marine vessels, and the mariners, so that we do the best we can to have a safe marine operation. One of the more dangerous aspects of working in the OCS or in the Gulf of Mexico or over water in general is the transfers from boats and utilizing of marine vessels for cargo and personnel. So encouraged by the Safety Environmental Management System, Helis has included a vetting of our vessels for their certificate of inspections and their stability letters, both of which are required by any vessel operating in the Gulf of Mexico. We also review their marine casualty reporting. And over the years, since we've instituted this review, Helis has informed the Coast Guard of Morgan City of errors on the certificate of inspection and stability letter for a certain crew boat. The errors allowed too much cargo on deck, thereby increasing the likelihood of the vessel capsizing. And the company has since corrected that issue. Helis has reported to the Coast Guard of New Orleans an uninspected boat company operating in Louisiana inappropriately or illegally by carrying passengers and freight for hire. Our actions stopped the company from operating boats without COIs and licensed mariners, increasing the safety of the fleet in the Gulf of Mexico. Helis informed the Coast Guard, New Orleans, of errant stability letters of 6 sister vessels. The vessels were allowed to operate at drafts unsafe for the authorized routes, whereby allowing too many passengers and too much cargo. Those letters were corrected with the Coast Guard, and the vessels are now in good working order and know their limits. Helis also reported to Coast Guard Texas City of an unsafe working condition that occurred on a lift boat while working in the OCS. The lift boat refused to report a marine casualty. Was a small fire in the engine room, causing engine damage, and they refused to report it to the Coast Guard. Helis made the report instead. So Helis is committed to marine safety and the vessel integrity, and we check each boat that we hire for both things. Next slide, please. Fleet safety. To go further, we look at the contractors, the mariners who operate the boats, captains and crew, and review their credentials to see if they've had any suspensions or revocations. We review their authorized routes and the boats, and the mariners' training level for authorized vessel tonnage as well. We did, in our reviews, which is also part of our SIMs, Helis informed the Coast Guard Mobile, Alabama, of a mariner with a revoked license operating a crew boat. These actions initiated an investigation and prevented the mariner from illegally operating vessels in the Gulf of Mexico. Next slide, please. We did have a couple of occasions of assisting the Coast Guard in other ways. This is not that many of you and your operations don't assist the Coast Guard in these ways, because sometimes it's required of the Coast Guard that you respond to an emergency anyway. But they are of note because they were performed by our trained personnel in Black Bay Field with the marine equipment we had available. And they went above and beyond the call of duty in several ways. And if I could cover just two events. This one was about a fisherman in distress. And as a result of it, in July 2016, our field foreman in Black Bay received a public service award from the Coast Guard New Orleans for life-saving efforts. His actions potentially saved the lives and certainly eliminated the need for the Coast Guard Air Station New Orleans to launch any resources. It's a short citation, and I think you might enjoy my reading of the citation. It's a certificate of merit to Mr. Lilton Harvey for services as set forth in the following. Citation: Mr. Lilton Harvey is recognized for exemplary action on the morning of 18 June 2016, when a fishing boat was in peril due to hazardous weather. During a passing storm, a fishing vessel with 3 persons on board sought refuge under the Black Bay Central Production Facility and became dangerously lodged between the support structures of the facility. Seeing the vessel was in distress and that there was a small child on board, Mr. Harvey immediately sprung into action by descending to a platform at the water level and pulled the child from the vessel to safety. He then assisted the vessel maneuver its bow into the seas, which alleviated the significant rolling that nearly caused the vessel to capsize. After the vessel freed itself from the support structures it had become entangled in, Mr. Harvey then helped the remaining individuals secure the vessel to the platform and assisted them onto the facility, where they remained until the weather improved. His unselfish actions saved the lives of the boat's occupants and helped the Coast Guard with its primary mission and most visible mission of safety of life at sea. Mr. Harvey's actions reflect the highest credit upon himself and are in keeping with the highest traditions of humanitarian service. So congratulations to Mr. Lilton Harvey, which if you knew him, you wouldn't be surprised that that's what he would do. Next slide, please. The other incident to brag about is an event that occurred in July of 2018. There's a nearby field called Main Pass 35 that early morning at 5:50 a.m., our operators received a phone call from an offset operator, not Main Pass 35, about a fire that had been observed going on at the platform, and that they had received a call from the 4 personnel who are on Main Pass 35. But our field foreman asked questions and learned that they had not contacted the Coast Guard yet. So the Helis contract personnel took over the operation in a way, and that they contacted the Coast Guard and stayed on the line with the Coast Guard throughout this emergency and kept them informed. In the meantime, we had a drilling rig that had a tug and 2 crew boats, and we also had 2 production crew boats at our production facility in the field. So we dispatched all of those vessels to Main Pass 35. And It was at 5:50. We got the call around 6:30 a.m. It was confirmed that the persons had evacuated from the burning platform and onto a Helis supplied vessel. Two of the personnel returned to the platform to do firefighting duties, and in the meantime, the tug that has a water spraying monitor on board began to spray the fire and helped put the fire out. By 6:55 a.m., the fire was extinguished. There were no injuries, so all 4 personnel were protected by evacuating, and the fire was extinguished. So throughout it all, our personnel were in touch with the Coast Guard and kept the Coast Guard from having to deploy any resources to address the emergency. And everything turned out quite well, except for the burnt platform. Next slide, please. My last slide. Helis's commitment to the safety of our workers and all Gulf of Mexico workplaces has grown organically over the years to become our culture, which has manifested into efforts to participate in the training of those brave men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard who honorably serve all of us engaged in those multitude of oil and gas exploration activities in the Gulf of Mexico. The Coast Guard motto is Semper Paratus, which means always ready. Helis and our contract personnel are honored to partner with the servicemen and women of the Coast Guard as they strive to fulfill that motto. Thank you for your time and attention and for your consideration of Helis as a finalist for the 2020 Safety Leadership Award. Have a good afternoon.